Most of you guys know about David Laid. He's basically been the poster boy for young guys looking to achieve an aesthetic physique since 2016, and he has made a massive mark in the fitness industry, arguably being the most famous Gymshark athlete and one of the largest creators in the fitness scene. Although nowadays Dave seems to be more focused on rehabilitation and motivating the next generation of gym goers, back in 2017 and 2018, he was hitting lifts that would challenge most top-level athletes while sitting at a very low body weight and insane levels of leanness. And standing at 188 centimeters or 6'2" for cheeseburger people, he definitely wasn't built for powerlifting, but he was still able to rack up some crazy numbers in the gym. So how well would he stack up against modern day lifters, and could prime David Laid have been a record-breaking powerlifter? Now let's start by going over some of his earlier lifts. Of course, Dave blew up on the YouTube scene because of his insane transformations at 16 and 17 years of age. He himself started out as a rather two-dimensional looking character, he started lifting, and with a very solid frame and genetic makeup, he managed to build a pretty solid physique, eventually landing him with a sponsorship deal with the biggest brand in fitness, Gymshark. Code back 10. But already at 17, Dave was putting up some insanely impressive lifts, with a 315-pound bench press, a slightly less impressive 4-plate squat, and a tremendous 545-pound deadlift, while weighing around 180 pounds himself. But while these numbers were pretty darn impressive on their own, the fact that Dave had only been lifting for about 3 years makes it even crazier, especially considering his nutrition and recovery were far from being on point. In fact, I'd argue his entire approach to training was also very off. Now, Dave would later get a coach to help him with his programming, but at the time, he was only using free templates that he had found online and simply doing whatever he liked, maxing out when he felt good and going lighter when he didn't, definitely leaving a lot of gains on the table despite how strong he had managed to get while staying very lean. This was about to change, however, as in 2016 he would start working with a coach named Elliot Atwell, who would go on to become one of the most hated coaches in the entire gym community for reasons that I will not disclose. But it had something to do with converting files into PDF. Now, I'm not sure how long they ended up working together, but it was the start of a new era for Dave's strength and physique progression. David started getting proper training in. He was following a plan, doing the right amount of volume, the right exercises, and he was focusing more on his nutrition, especially getting sufficient amounts of calories, which had been a major struggle of his in the past. And it definitely paid off. By the middle of 2017, this is how much he had improved. Despite getting up to a 635-pound deadlift, Dave's bench and squat had remained pretty stagnant. He was still getting in the occasional single with 3 plates, but it was as if he wasn't making a run for a bigger bench. But suddenly, during that very summer, going from May to August, something pretty crazy would happen. Out of nowhere, David was starting to get a lot stronger. His bench was blowing up. He went from barely getting 3 plates for a single to hitting it for 3 reps in just a single month. But how was it even possible for a guy who had already been training for around 4.5 years to be making this kind of progress? Well, many have since dabbled it down to David starting to use PEDs. And although that was likely a reason, if you were to look at his physique during this time, Dave got visibly less lean and he was actually starting to put on some weight. The guy who had been hovering around the mid to high 180s had suddenly packed on 20 pounds of body weight. And you could definitely see it in his physique. The neck was looking a lot thicker and the arms were filling out. But the biggest change was that of his bench press. With the smallest arch and insanely long arms, Dave managed to hit a 390-pound bench press at just over 200 pounds bodyweight. But it wasn't just the absolute number that impressed his followers, but rather the rate of progress. As he had hit 365 just a few weeks beforehand, jumping straight to 375 and 390 within just a few days. And he also hit a 465-pound squat, despite almost never training his legs and not really focusing too much on squatting. However, his strongest lift had always been the deadlift, and the last time you saw him, Dave was barely able to get a 635-pound lift in. But on January 30th, around 8 months after his 635, Dave did this. A massive 675-pound deadlift, which is equal to 306 kilos, no straps, no hitching, just brute strength, and an all-time personal record at just a few days before he turned 20. So he was technically only 19 years old when he hit this lift. Now this lift would make David very competitive in the powerlifting scene for his age, although it would put him around 100 pounds behind the current junior world record held by British Nathaniel Messiah. It would be enough to secure a world record in 2013, just 5 years earlier. But the most impressive thing about David's lifting journey wasn't just the absolute numbers. Although a 1530-pound total is impressive as hell in its own right, despite his bench and deadlifts being gym-only lifts, which wouldn't be approved in powerlifting competitions, the most impressive part was how quickly he got there, and how lean he managed to stay throughout the entire process. After all, this guy was primarily a fitness model who just happened to train for strength on the side. He never went all in trying to fill out his frame or focus exclusively on the powerlifts. And yet, he still managed to get into a pretty competitive total for his age and weight class. However, following this insanely fast rise, David would unfortunately end up sustaining a back injury, which for the next couple of years would almost completely prevent him from squatting and deadlifting. And after a while, one of his shoulders started giving out as well, causing his heavy lifting journey to have an abrupt end. While you can still find some recent videos of him doing some decent benching and the occasional squat, it is unlikely that we'll ever see him get back to this level of strength ever again. And this really goes to show that you should always be enjoying the lifting journey when you have it, because one day it may just go downhill and you may sustain an injury which will hold you back forever. But what do you guys think? Will David Laid ever be able to get back to this former glory, or is he better off without it, as he is still pretty much retaining all of his muscle mass despite not being able to train 100% on most exercises anymore? Thank you guys so much for watching, and just like David, I'm also sponsored by Gymshark, and if you're a fan of the brand and you want to support the channel, using code BACK10 at checkout is the best way to do so, and I appreciate every single one of you guys so much for just watching the videos that I put out. So, I'll see you all next time.